Hey friends, this is Waylon Lewis, and every Friday I am offering 3 mindful tips. Mindful doesn't mean you're perfect. Mindful doesn't mean you're, zenning around in pastel colors, being a yogi, although it can. Mindful means we're trying to be present, to appreciate our lives, to show up fully, to feel, to dare to feel, to communicate with vulnerability, meaning emotional intelligence, communicate about the hard stuff. Mindfulness is, to me, a very boring word for a very exciting thing, which is living openly and empathetically, caringly, with some sense of responsibility and curiosity and delight. So, from that point of view, we're going to do 3 mindful tips every single Friday. We've been doing this for a couple weeks now. We do these on our YouTube channel. We do these here on Instagram. We do them on Facebook, and we put them all directly on the Walk the Talk Show channel on elephantjournal.com if you'd like to see any of them. So today being Friday, 3 mindful tips. 2 of them come from my experience today. One of them is I said to this Buddhist mentor, I ran into some dear friends of mine, a best friend, Peggy Markell, David Sanford, and I jokingly said to David, I was supposed to do the video at 4, but they invited me to sit down and chit chat about things, how everything's going, which is super helpful for me to process, to connect, community. And I said, well, I can do all these things later, like I'm doing the video now, but, I'm supposed to do it at 4. And he said, well, this is the Buddhist fellow. He said, well, being late can be a virtue. Now, in our society, I think somewhat justifiably, understandably, we all regard late as a bad thing. If you're late, as my grandma used to say, you're stealing someone else's time. If you're late, you're being disrespectful. If you're late, there's some sense of disorganization here. The second mindful tip will be about my messy hair. I'm sorry. So he said, part of being late means if you run into people and there's an organic, unplanned connection, you just are willing to put some things aside, do them later, and connect genuinely. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It was a welcome reminder. So the first mindful tip is about being late. Or from a positive point of view, in the blue zones, they've studied blue zones around the world. And blue zones are these areas where lots of people live until they're 100 years old, and they studied these blue zones. They're all over the world in different areas. Costa Rica, Loma Linda, I think somewhere near Greece, I think somewhere in Japan. So what do they have in common? Because they're all over the world. It's not just genetic or whatever. And one of the 6 things that all blue zones have in common is organic community, meaning people are social on a low level, meaning it's not a big concert, it's not a big event, it's not pre-planned dinner date with your dear friends, but it's organic in the sense that people run into each other, they're talking, it's low level, it's very chill, all day. They're playing chess, they're chatting outside the cafe. So community, basically, is one of the 6 things. So that's mindful tip number 1. Reserve a little time for mindful community, and if you are going to be late, communicate clearly, as always, responsibly, with those who you're going to be late for. This is not an excuse to be like, but blue zones, mindful tips. I don't need to be accountable. So that brings us to number 2, accountability. It's become a hip thing on social media to say, don't shame me, don't judge me, judgy, judgy, shamey, shamey. And I think, our President Donald Trump kind of, in an ironic way, of all people, probably should have accepted a little bit of shame or a little bit of responsibility, maybe a lot. But it's become a hip thing to say, don't shame me, don't judge me, I'm going to do whatever I want. So shamelessness has become kind of hip. And I think in certain areas that's healthy and fine. But from a Buddhist point of view, we actually want to accept responsibility. Drive all blames into one being, so having some accountability, taking an interest in, if you're in a relationship or a friendship or a best friendship or a colleagueship, owning whatever you can genuinely provides room and space in these difficult times of difficulty or confusion so that you can resolve situations. Am I good at this? Am I talking from a mountaintop with my fancy, guru outfit on? No. But is this something I practice? Yes. And that's the key to mindfulness. We are all hypocrites in a certain sense, but really, we're just all trying. We're all trying to care. We're not perfect, but we're trying. We're practicing. The point of practice is, fall down 7 times, get up 8. So we just keep practicing. So having some curiosity or interest in growing as a human being, growing in your relationship, finding the truth, is super healthy if we want to actually grow up. And again, my Buddhist teacher, my parents' Buddhist teacher, he said the most profound mantra of all of them is Om Grow Up Svaha, which is both not a real mantra and the most real mantra of them all. So drive all blames into one. We have articles about that, videos about that, podcasts about that on elephantjournal.com. Number 3, and this is a really short one if you want to stick around. Someone messaged me out of the blue today, and people do this somewhat regularly because we have a big audience, but someone messaged me today and said, thank you so much for what you're doing. It makes a difference. And that was it. They didn't ask for something. They didn't look to connect. They didn't blah, blah, blah. It was like one sentence, short sentence. And honestly, we've effed up today. I've effed up every single day of my life. But we care, we try, and getting a message like that is so powerful. It's a moment that stuck with me all day. I sat down before doing these 3 mindful tips and I said, what do I want to share? What really stuck with me today? And I thought of that one little half-sentence message where someone said, thank you for what you do, it makes a difference. And I'm not sharing that out of vanity, hopefully. I'm sharing that because someone took the time to message and say something kind and constructive. And it really helped. And it doesn't make me overlook, ignore my failures or elephant's failures, which are legion. We're not perfect. And again, that comes back to mindfulness. Not being perfect is not a problem because we're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to show up. We're trying to care. We're trying to learn. We're trying to accept some responsibility. And we're trying to, be of benefit. So that's it. 3 mindful tips. Hope you enjoyed. Big love to all of you. I hope this contributed a little bit to you. Sometimes I wish I wrote a whole book on this. Sometimes I wish I had someone telling me these mindful tips every Friday. So I hope they're offered in that spirit. May they be of use to you. And if not, the failure is mine in communicating them because I am not a holy guru. Thank you so much. Have a great Friday.